Welcome to the First, the Last, the Nerdom, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of film, TV, and everything in between. This month is March Madness for us, and what better way to start it off than with a mad scientist? We're taking a trip back to 1985 for a splatter filled, grotesque, and darkly comedic journey into horror with the cult classic Reanimator. This film, based on H.P. Lovecraft's story, Herbert West Reanimator, combines over the top gore with razor sharp humor to create a unique horror experience that still has fans talking decades later. We'll explore the unforgettable performances, the special effects that are still impressive today, and the twisted, eccentric charm that has made Reanimator a staple in nerd culture. So grab your scalpel and prepare for a conversation about mad science, reanimated corpses, and a fine line between horror and comedy. It's time to talk Reanimator on the First, the Last, the Nerdom.
E.T. to Lovecraft, they dish the facts. Lightsabers clash and case on their backs. Xenomorphs lurking Gotham's dark alleys. With every episode, the fandom rallies. The first to last, the Nerdom with Mike and Tom. Dropping nerd knowledge like an atom bomb. Discussing the cosmic, the scary, the epic. Tune in, strap in, it's all real, authentic. Galaxies far, far, horrors, chilling lore. From Krypton to Hogwarts, always explore. Panels and pages, heroes and stages, worlds colliding, they know all the phases. Wicked X-Wings and Del X that scream, phantom zones and vampire dreams. Multiverse open and ready to storm. Mike and Tom in the lab, setting the norm.
Right. I can't hear you, man. I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. I was gonna say, hey, Tom, welcome back to the dissection table.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna have
Got
some
that
cutting remarks
wonderful
here.
green glow. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. That's
Honor
all.
our show.
Yeah, good, nice.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the Reanimator. Great
Yes,
film,
sir.
but we also have our you're probably wondering who the hell we are if you're the first time viewing us. We're the First Last Nerdom. I'm Tom and I'm here with Mike, and let's talk about our channel. We have several videos. We talk about all things nerdy. We do films, both sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and anything that tickles us. We cover it. We also cover comic books and whatnot. We also have some social media presence. I'm on Reddit. I try to find a subreddit that likes us and to promote our stuff. So you might see me there. If you do, say hello. And if you are from Reddit, if you saw one of my links and came because of that, say hello to you. And I'm also on X under First Last Nerdom. I'm also under Reddit under First Last Nerdom. If you want to follow us there on X, I try to promote our newest stuff. Heretic just came out on HBO Max, and so I was promoting our. We did a show of it a few weeks back. So yeah, if you have HBO Max and want some more horror after Reanimator, check out Heretic. Pretty good flick that we promoted on our show. And Mike, I hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I also am available on X if you want to have a longer form conversation or midweek celebration or boo or jeer, whatever you want. We'd love to hear from you. ApeIt_Ink on X. I also do a publication of the same name, ApeIt.Ink on Substack. Just kind of longer form, kind of some serious, some not serious, whatever things that I want to get into. Really, it's for my own entertainment, and occasionally I'll take a tech deep dive here or a something or other, and always there. But yeah, and like Tom said, that's our thing. And I was gonna say, our Heretic one, I'm very proud of that one. We did. I love that. So that all these will be included into the show notes. But yeah, so I think we're ready to transition here to go mode. And I was gonna say, so so typically you are no doubt the engine that powers this channel for recommendations more often than not that I can't come up with some, but you seem to have a good taste, and when you pull them from your physical physical archives, or your something that you experience like I do, and passing over the time of life, and doing all that. But speaking of passing away, um, this movie, how did you come into this movie, Tom? I've been dying to ask you about this because I always love it. And some, and the other one is like, what is your history with this? Where is this guy coming from? Because it is I did not know this one. Like most movies here, I didn't know that this one existed. Period. When from the get go. So like this is the very interesting, very very interesting movie.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very unique, has a very interesting history to it. But yeah, it's a great movie that cult classic. Again, would we do pretty well with cult classics
Hmm.
here. It tends to get the most views on our channel, just because I guess everybody just loves it and people don't talk about it enough. So yeah, but I to be honest, I'm not sure exactly. It's one of those movies that feels like it's always been with you,
Hmm.
but but it's not. There was a point where you discovered it, but I think what happened was in high school or maybe in early in college, I got into HP Lovecraft. I discovered him, and then you start um seeing recommendations for movies that were inspired by his writing, and obviously Reanimators based on a HP Lovecraft story. And so I either saw it, I'm thinking I rented it, but I might have saw it on late night cable television.
Okay, right.
One of the two, but yeah, it's one of those movies that just kind of hits you, and you either love it or it's just not your thing. And I was completely enamored with this movie because it hits on the two things that I love, horror and comedy, and then when you combine them both and do it well, you've won me over. This movie's sort of over the top, like Evil Dead.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah,
in
Evil
your
Dead too.
face. One of the mottos of the director Stuart Gordon was more, more. We need more. More is not enough. So he said less is less. More is more. So
Well,
this
it's
is
so
one of those
true.
movies that just amps it up to 11 and stays at 11 throughout the movie. It's an hour and 26 minutes of just nonstop. Just they cut out all the fat of this movie. There's not a moment where you're like, yeah, it's like, well, this could be cut out. I mean, it's stripped to the bone. It's the movie version of a punk record. It gets in, hits the beats, and jumps out, and you're like, whoa, at the end. And it's like, what did I just experience? So and it's like that today. I mean, it's one of those movies that a lot of movies you see when you were younger, they don't have the same effect when you see them later on. They just
Mm.
Other movies do it better. They steal from it, and it just kind of reduces the movie down. But this movie hasn't lost any of that.
No, and speaking of that, and we'll get into the kind of financials a little bit later, but this was a very shoestring budget, even for 1985. It was very very tight. I think it was just under $1 million that they had, but they used every square inch of that too. And then there's some really fascinating history. I did some research too. I'm sure, like just like you did, on like
Hmm.
how it came out in the theater, that kind of maybe it gave it a little bit more cred, so to speak. But yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, this reminded me of a couple different movies. One you already mentioned, Evil Dead, because
Hmm.
it has that. Although that's a little bit more, the comedy is a little bit more front and center, but it does have its serious moments. This one is a little bit more serious in certain aspects, but it also
Hmm.
kind of reminded me of Death Becomes Her. Although Death Becomes Her would be the kiddie version
Hmm.
compared to this movie. This
Yeah.
would be the HBO. late night,
Mhm.
rated R,
Mhm.
not rated,
Yeah.
NC-17 kind of thing, but in a good way, not in a,
Yeah.
it doesn't hit you over the head. It takes itself very seriously, and as a result of that, so do you. So it helps along, kind of, it helps grease the wheels for getting into that world. It's very unique ride, for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, and well, Evil Dead 2 or Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, those movies kind of wink with you. It's like, okay, yeah,
Right.
we're having fun here, but yeah, this movie its humor is sort of built in. It's like they play it straight in this movie, and then the comedy just comes from, just it's being well written and funny. It's kind of baked in on it. But yeah, this is obviously it's based on an H.P. Lovecraft story, and it's one of the more gory H.P. Lovecraft stories. It's probably one of his lesser. He probably looked on it a little lesser. It's not as he kind of, most of the time he leaves the horror to your imagination, whereas this one it was pretty much in your face. And so yeah, they had a lot to work with. Gordon wanted to do, and he was kind of fed up with Dracula and
Mm.
vampire movies at the time, which was huge. And he wanted to do. He said, "Why aren't we doing really good Frankenstein movies?" And one of his pals said, "Well, have you read Herbert West Reanimator?
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like a Frankenstein story." And the crazy thing is, we think of H.P. Lovecraft, and if you wanted to read H.P. Lovecraft now, you could even go online. We have a link to the story it's based off of, where you can just read it online. But at the time, the story was out of print, and the only way that Gordon could read this was going to the big Chicago library, and they had it on request. They had the original pulp, and you had to make an appointment to actually go to read it. And they observed you, and he goes, it was kind of crumbling in his hand as he was looking at it, and so he got them to Xerox it off for him so that he could read it at his leisure. And he's originally was a theater where they did original plays, and his actors were going on to do television, like
Right.
Dennis Franz and Joe Montana. And he thought, well, I could get into this movie making as well, and decided he would do a horror movie, uh, and kind of do it use the theater stage as the way to film it, but
Mm.
as a soundstage. But it was originally going to be, he decided it was going to be a half-hour television series, and he would do different Lovecraft stories, and Reanimator was going to do that, and he actually pitched it to PBS. So an alternate universe,
That is so
PBS picked
funny.
it up, and it would have been on PBS.
I could see where this could be, if it had the right city and the right PB, the right kind of people. That this could have been
Yep.
a
Hmm.
completely different animal. That's
Hmm.
crazy. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
didn't they film this all in a very short, tight schedule? That was one I
Hmm.
saw, and then the other one,
Hmm.
didn't they film this in an LA hospital, or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. What they did was, yeah, they switched over, and was going to do it as a, well, they were told that half-hour shows were out and hour-long shows were in, so they actually wrote a 13 episode series with a Reanimator, and which I would love to see, but or read even, and he made up with Brian Usna, who had just had got ready and got the funding for a movie that collapsed and it didn't go anywhere. And so he had all this
Right.
prep and ready to go. And he talked to Stuart Gordon and fell in love with the story. And they decided that they would fund this movie instead. And they were all set to do it in Chicago, where his theater was. And
Yeah.
the people that were in charge said no. They turned it down. They said, you can do a artsy movie here, but a B movie trash horror movie, you can't do that here. So they moved out to L.A. To film this, and yeah, they used a I guess it was unusual. Well, I guess there was like a disaster or something, and it was an old hospital that got closed down,
Okay,
that a lot of Hollywood people would use to film in for their Hollywood scenes. But yes, yes, they used that, and then the morgue was a set that they built that was based off of Cook County in Chicago's their morgue.
that's cool. That is cool. That is cool. Yeah, they. How long did it take them to film? Do you know, like the length of time at all?
18 days. 18 days. They
Okay.
started in
Yeah,
November and ended like right before Christmas.
that is crazy. They got all this done. What we see on what we're talking about that and we saw on the screen is
Mhm.
that is pretty crazy. Because I wouldn't be able to tell like if this would have been longer or not. But I know it definitely
Yep.
it it definitely tickled a lot of people for its genre, how it presents this macabre
Hmm.
HP Lovecraftian story based on that what you mentioned that novella that series.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, Brian Usna, the producer, he like I said, he had the funding for it with the help of Charles Band, who later on went on to do the Full Moon Studios, but he was with Empire at the time.
Okay.
Brian Usna, since they had the funding, they had no studio head to overlook them. They could do whatever they wanted, and that was sort of the
Oh,
free spirit of
freedom.
this.
Yeah.
Before they made it, they Brian Usna had Bob, I think Bob Greenberg, the other producer, and Stuart Gordon come over, and they just watched. They had marathon runs of horror movies, and they would watch
It's crazy.
them. Gordon said that they watched Rosemary's Baby, they watched
Hmm.
Drill Killer, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and their goal was to absorb all these movies and do a movie that was more, that was that kind of topped them all. That they wanted to shoot for the stars and do the best they could of these. So yeah, that it was made with a love for horror movies. You could tell it. And in the audio commentary I listened to for Stuart Gordon, you can tell that he loves Rosemary's Baby, and he loved the handheld nature that Roman Polanski used for it. And there's a lot of that in this. And there's the main character is Dan Kane, and he was. If you notice, he says that a lot of the shots were shot over his shoulder because Kane is sort of like the audience member. The
Right.
audience members kind of sees the movie through his eyes, and so it's almost like they're peering over his shoulder into the movie. So that was very intentional. If you notice that was shot in that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this kind of follows that novella. You have Herbert West, who's played by Jeffrey Combs, and he developed a serum that can bring the dead
Hmm.
back to life. But
Hmm.
not exactly as they were before. Sorry, we're about 15 minutes in. We didn't even get to the kind of the gist of it, but that's kind of the
Yeah.
setting. You have this really smart, brilliant mind, and the thing with that is and again, this is a beautiful way when films can do they'll do the trope but in their own way. So this is a classic mad scientist. You know, you're kind of dealing, but it's not quite the same as Frankenstein. It has a lot to it has a lot to play with there, but it does it in its own way, and it also doesn't get tripped up with the zombie thing. Like that's the other thing that I
Hmm.
noticed that this thing did very well. This is a unique world that it creates for itself, which I
Hmm.
think lends itself to the authenticity of it being, something from H.P. Lovecraft. That's one thing, and then the other thing that always goes well for these kind of movies that I've noticed as you have introduced me to horror is that the people that make them understand the genre and how to do a story. And it's been such a rewarding genre. Thank you again for introducing me. Because you would never. There are so many different things and takeoffs that you can do if it's horror, and this does comedy. It does it does a little bit of everything. But the things that it does in a bigger way, in a major way, it does very well. I will say that. I was surprised
Mhm.
by how it did feel kind of like a soap opera in a way. Now that I recall that, like that is the feel, or that is another kind of waft of scent that I got from it too. And
Mhm.
you're right, you're right. But anyway, I just want to kind of call that out, and before I lost my frame of mind.
Yeah.
And I was going to say we're about 20 minutes or so in here, and I think we're ready to take a quick break. If you're ready for that, I think that's on the docket. Are you ready
All right.
for our first break here,
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah. Take it away.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us. Have you ever felt like your medical education just isn't hands-on enough?
Are you tired of professors telling you which body parts should stay attached to other body parts?
Well, then you need to apply to Miskatonic University's School of Medicine, where the line between life and death is just a suggestion.
Miss Adonic, our motto is ethics are for the unambitious.
Our removed faculty, or excuse me, our renowned faculty includes experts in experimental reanimation, interdimensional parasitology, and creative anatomy.
Side effects of attendance may include nightmares, God complex, and healthy fixation with neon green liquids.
Miskatonic University,
Tonic
where your
University,
medical
where their medical career
career
never
never
dies.
dies,
It
and
just,
it just
just
reanimated.
reanimates.
Not an accredited institution, campus located in Arkham, Massachusetts, and possibly just a dimensional rift in your own psyche. And now back to the show. That worked out well.
Yeah.
Worked out well. I'm glad that they sponsored us for
Yes.
the show, Tom.
Yes. Mestonic. Yeah. You gotta check them out. But yeah. So yeah. No, it's I like how the movie kind of amps up. It doesn't it start. I said it kind of stays at 11 through the whole movie, but it
Mm-hmm.
it does have kind of an elevating effect. It kind of starts off kind of normal, like a normal horror movie, and it just kind of ticks up and ticks up and ticks up. There's not
It does.
until it's like full blast at the end. It's just insanity, just craziness going on. But yeah, it has this nice ebb and flow to it. But I will say that one of the things I love about the movie is the acting and the writing. I think the fact that Stuart Gordon was he comes from the stage and theater. Uh, he knows the importance of a well written line, and the they did do a lot of rehearsal before this movie, before they started filming. They I believe they went to Barbara Crampton's house, and they all kind of rehearsed their
Okay.
lines and kind of read through it. And I think it kind of pays off in the movie because the characters seem very comfortable with each other and who they are. And I think one of the cool things that elevates this movie from just your average B movie is that it is smartly written. There's a lot of uh, interesting lines in the movie, and the characters just um, seem real to you. And
Mm-hmm.
they are like, if you took out one of the actors, it wouldn't be the same movie. You couldn't have this movie without Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West. I mean,
No.
his indelible presence in this movie just kind of elevates it. If you just had some regular guy that couldn't act do this movie, it wouldn't be this
Well,
movie.
I want to piggyback on that because the casting director Cynthia Schneider pushed for Combs after she saw him in a play in Los Angeles. I believe.
Yeah, yeah, he
Talk
had
about a
won an award.
career-defining recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of great actors like Barbara Crampton, who's did a lot of soap operas as
Mm-hmm.
well. She and then so which may kind of key in your thoughts about the soap opera thing, but yeah, she's awesome in this, and yeah, and Bruce Abbott, who plays Kane, the the guy that unluckily gets gets Herbert as a roommate and gets pulled into all this. David
Yeah.
Gale, who unfortunately passed away 5
Mm-hmm.
years after this movie, he's just amazing as the other evil mad scientist in this. And
Yeah.
then
Shame on me for not having that up. I
Robert
was
Sampson who plays the dean, is just incredible as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. You know, the funny part, what I when I was researching this, I mentioned Cynthia Schneider to also mention she's married to Roy Schneider of Jaws fame.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's that, and we'll get into it here too because I made those kind of those notes. Um,
Hmm.
it's just funny. The point I wanted to bring is like, and we'll key into a few other things that are kind of like 6 degrees of separation type thing. But the thing that you'll see over and over again is, whoever the person was that did this or did that. I noticed this. This was a movie that was made by professionals. Nobody on here slacked off. If they did it in 18 days, then they did. Can you imagine if you had like one loose kind of wire, like somebody that just didn't get it? So like I'm thinking like the more research I noticed, they're like people who know people. Maybe they're not the front line, the marquee poster person, but they definitely had a deep and wide background for all of these folks that shined in their own way. As we kind of go through, Jeffrey Combs is you mentioned that, just going through that, no doubt there, agreed. But anyway, I just wanted to comment on that, the professional nature of the
And
film.
yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, the on the commentary track with Stuart Gordon, he said that a lot of the crew had also just finished working on the first Terminator movie,
Okay.
and they actually went to a screening of it while they were shooting Reanimator, and they had no idea what movie that James Cameron was making, and they went to see it. It's like, oh wow, we actually made a real movie, this is really cool, and
Absolutely.
so yeah, they were kind of jazzed on that, and also um the first guy that they reanimate from the morgue, that big guy that throws the dean around,
Yes.
it was actually Arnold Schwarzenegger's body double for
Oh,
Terminator. So
that is
that's
so
why
cool.
he's such a guy and kind of looks like Arnold, because he was. And actually Arnold actually ended up watching the movie because of his double being in it, and he was a big fan of it. In fact, this has a lot of fans to it. Uh, the uh, cinema photographer who didn't start on the movie but came in a week after because they weren't real happy with the original one. Mac Alberg, he went on to do a lot of different movies, and he worked on a movie that David Bowie was on, and David Bowie come up and said, "You're the guy who did Reanimator, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes,
Oh,
"It's my
that is so
favorite
cool.
movie." So even David Bowie was a big fan.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. Kind of going back to Jeffrey Combs. He kind of became a regular for Student Gordon in future films.
Hmm.
And I had thought that it was bothering me until I looked it up for a show, and I realized that Jeffrey Combs was also in Star Trek. He played like 8 different characters, but most famously, I think Wayoon on Deep Space Nine for the Founders, and the thing. So just kind of throwing it out here. I love this kind of stuff because I was going to say, I brought it up on the thing. I
Yeah,
just had it.
Jeffrey Combs is one of those actors
He's
that I
so good.
absolutely love, and I
Yeah.
wish that he had like one of acting role that just kind of brought him out to the mainstream, because he really deserves that. But yeah, he's a solid actor,
He
and
solid
has
base
worked
hit. Yeah.
continuously. But yeah, he's one of those actors that you wish he kind of became bigger than he did. But yeah, he's fantastic. He seems like a wonderful person. In fact, all the people on this movie seem like wonderful people. I usually bring up my physical media. I got the Blu-ray from Arrow Films, and some there's three different audio tracks on it. I listened to two of them. One's just Stuart Gordon. The other one I listened to was most of the actors and Brian Usna. It's Brian Usna, Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, Bruce Abbott, and Robert Sampson. All do a do a commentary on it, and they're all from like the early 2000s when the DVD was originally put out. But you could tell by the way they're all together talking. They hadn't been together in forever, but you could tell that they were all friends, and there was just kind of a warm feeling that you felt like you were sitting with friends, talking about the movie when you were listening to it. They all had a great time, and it was real fun to listen to. So, yeah, uh, I would recommend this, although it's hard to see. I saw that the Amazon has one copy left, so you might be able to snag that copy.
Right.
But there's a 4K coming out if you want to pull that up, from Ignite. They're doing a 4K release. It's the 40th anniversary. It came out in 1985, so in October this movie celebrates its 40th anniversary, and this is I think you get this is like the deluxe edition. You could do like the just the standard, just the movie for like I think $50. I have not ordered from Ignite Films. I don't know their quality, so buyer beware. But yeah, it's on pre-order, so if you want a physical copy, that might be the best way to go for a 4K. This movie was restored in 4K on this one, but it is just a Blu-ray. So, but if you can snag a copy of this, I'd say it's definitely good
Worth it.
because it's got, like I said, those audio commentaries. There's a documentary that's over an hour long, and a lot of extra goodies like extended scenes and a deleted scene. Just a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, no.
And
I was gonna say, I unfortunately I had to. Well, I did. I had to do what I had to do to watch the movie. I'll just leave it at that. But it's
mhm,
not widely available online, and that's a shame. For
mhm,
it's great when Shutter, and I'm not dogging out anybody really. It's great
mhm,
when they can find these things. I'm really surprised that this has not been more fully taken advantage. I'm surprised. Like it's got to be like waiting to be picked up some one of these decades. They
yeah,
gotta have something because it's like a whole other fresh IP. Because like I didn't really read too much about the sequels and follow-ups that came after it. But it
mhm,
definitely, and that was because I think in part because it was a cult classic. Like, I mean, this is almost made like a textbook cult classic film. Like if you were trying
mhm,
to, formulate a meme or something, this would have went viral with the right folks at the right
yeah.
time. But I'm really surprised, and you noted this before we got on the air and started recording this that it was very hard to find, and I noticed that as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
And if you're out there and haven't seen it and are intrigued by what we've said, it is on YouTube, so you could definitely watch it there. I think you could rent it, or you could. I think it's just on YouTube, so you could just watch it. Some
I
soul
thought
put it up a few years ago, and it's hasn't been taken down. So, yeah, I don't know the copyright thing with this
thing,
movie,
yeah.
so I don't know the fact that it's on YouTube and hasn't been taken down means that it doesn't have a strong uh,
Well, I don't think anybody
studio
cares.
trying
Yeah,
to take it. And actually, all three of the Reanimator movies are on YouTube. So
maybe that's
if you're
why.
so inclined, I've seen the second one. It's not directed by Gordon. It's directed by Brian Usna, the producer of the first one, and he directed both the sequel and the third movie. I haven't seen the third movie. It came out in the 2000s. Hadn't
Hmm.
heard good things about it, but I might eventually watch it. But it just
Okay,
never
okay.
I never got around to it. This there's this movie is so good. It's hard to live up to this movie. even the credits. Let's get let's start at the midway through our conversation. Let's talk about the credits. The credits
Sure.
are really engaging. I love the credits, bright colors. The guy who did them later did a lot of the credits for Tim Burton movies. They were kind of, Gordon said they were kind of going for the Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe movie, the way their credits were did, that sort of just kind of sucks you in. And Richard Band's soundtrack is just kind of hits you right on the head at the beginning. It's sort of like an ode to Bernard Herrmann. They wanted that feel that he did Psycho. You could definitely hear the Psycho influence on the the string instruments that are playing at the
Mhm.
beginning of the movie, but the yeah.
Well, to kind of pick up,
Definitely there.
yeah, on that, you mentioned Barbara Crampton earlier.
Hmm.
She later went on to do You're Next and We Are Still Here.
Hmm.
And connecting that to modern horror, she also was in Chopping Mall, which was executively produced, I believe, by Roger Corman. And Roger
Yeah.
Corman was, he didn't he give early breaks to like some of the greats today. you know, uh,
Yeah, like Ron
Francis Ford
Howard
Coppola,
and
Martin
yeah, just endlessly.
Scorsese, yeah, and
Yeah.
James Cameron, yeah. And it's anyway. That's kind of the point. I wanted to kind of the hub and spoke of this thing of why there's so many good people that knew how to act, how to write, how to do practical
Hmm.
effects, how to do gore,
Yeah.
how to do a budget, how to all the whole thing, how to make a movie. I guess it would be the short way.
Yeah, yeah, and Barbara Crampton's got like a renaissance of her career at this point. Yeah, she started off. This is her first movie, and like I said, she did a lot of soap operas. As she was doing the soap operas, she did do a lot of horror movies as well. Like I said, Shopping Mall, From Beyond, and
Hmm.
she as those during the 2000s, soap operas kind of had a decline. I think her last soap opera was Guiding Light, and she got married and decided to have kids and raise a family for a few years. And I think she was on vacation at one point and got a call from her manager that hadn't called her in like 6 years and offered her You're Next, which is a big horror movie that came out a few years ago.
Okay.
That was pretty good,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
just sort of kind of reignited her career. And now she's been in a lot of cool little movies, a lot of them that I've kind of wanted to do on the show, like Suitable Flesh, which I believe was supposed to be directed by Stuart Gordon before he
Okay.
passed, but which is sort of has that kind of Reanimator vibe to it. So yeah, that may be something we want to look at. But yeah, she's also become a producer, and she said that with her revitalized career, she wants to spend it as well as promoting other people. She just seems like a really warm, wonderful person that just loves what she's doing and wants to help out with people. And I think that was sort of probably instilled to her with like Stuart Gordon and all the people that she grew up around in the movie business. But yeah, seems like a wonderful person.
No, she's great. She's great. I was just gonna say, the one of the movies I'm surprised we haven't done. We'll have to bookmark this one. Another movie I wanted to us to cover was The Frighteners. I realized that we had, but anyway, moving on to the thing. I was going to say, Jeffrey Combs is in The Frighteners, so that's why it's apropos to what we're
Yeah.
doing. And that was Peter Jackson did that before he did Lord of the Rings,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is what it is. But again, when you're super talented and you can show up
Mhm.
and act and be a professional and give the best, and if you have enough of those people around you, you make something substantial. Not everything substantial means that it has to win all these awards and it has to have buku box office results or whatever. That's what it is. But this kind of shows that Hollywood is a small town when it
Mhm.
comes to
Yeah.
who's connected to who and who's done what with what. And
Mhm.
it definitely it pulls through and delivers more often than not.
Yeah. And I was going to point out the I love the reagent that Herbert West used. It's actually that stuff that's in glow sticks. They actually
I
they
didn't.
went through
Oh, I
maybe
was wondering that.
900 glow sticks, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's a limited. I think there was only 40 minutes where you could actually film it, before it goes dark again. So yeah, and that stuff is highly toxic, and you're not supposed to get it on your skin. But in the commentary, Bruce Abbott said that they were getting it on their skin all the time. So yeah. But luckily, no one was
Well,
harmed because of it.
yeah, I think in the H.P. Lovecraft movie, or excuse me, story, it's not described as his color. So this was their
Yeah.
invention, and
Hmm.
again, this goes back to how professional they were. They knew that because films obviously are a visual medium, and what better way than to kind of have this classic, a goo, this chartreuse, bright neon green, whatever you want to call it, that it sticks out almost as its own character because I mean it's kind of a plot device, but it works very well. I was trying to find
Yeah.
a good shot
Hmm.
of the goo.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
And
you go. That's a great
yeah.
shot. It's just so good.
Yeah. Yeah, just really really stands out. Yeah, and also what stands out is Robert West's attire. I mean, he wore it first and wore it best with the black and white suit with the pencil thin tie. Quentin Tarantino brought it back with Reservoir Dogs, but hey, Herbert West was rocking it before them.
You are on the money. I agree with that. I will back that up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's
And we haven't spent a lot of time on the story, but one of the couple of things I like to point out is there's actually, and also we neglected to kind of promote ourselves, except for the intro. But this is March Madness month, where we're focusing on movies that are mad. Whether it's a mad scientist like in this case, or we've got some crazy people coming up. But yeah, everything crazy and mad is going to be focused on this month. But this actually has two mad scientists, and you start off with the villain in the movie being Herbert West at the start, but about halfway through. Dr. Hill kind of comes in and takes over the evil scientist part, and
oh, I know
Herbert
where
kind
we're
of becomes
going. I know where we're going.
becomes
Yep.
the protagonist, the hero. It's
Yes.
very unique, and your feelings do change. Your first like verse to Herbert and are along with Kane and Megan and are like, hey, what's something off with this guy? But then when Dr. Hill comes in, everybody kind of switches over to Herbert, and Herbert's the man.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, and one other thing I wanted to kind of touch on, at least give some credit where I do, because we both bring this up all the time. The practical effects and the gore. Um, they did a great. I think you mentioned they went through 900 whatever glow sticks. I think
Hmm.
they think they used around 24 gallons of like blood, fake blood,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
and it's everywhere. And this is a kind of a weird way to say it, but when you see it, it sounds like a lot, but it fits in with what you're seeing on the screen, from scene to scene. So it's not like it's like some crazy, over the top, in your face, kind of like The Shining, like where you have that classic scene with the elevator and all that. It's not like that at all. It makes it's in ratio to what it should be. It's not crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had oh, they had to do some creative camera angles for the head scene, for one of the head scenes.
Hmm.
And I was gonna say,
Yep. You've got you got a headless mad scientist going around.
yeah,
And yeah, there's on the Blu-ray, there's a lot of behind the scene footage and like I said, commentary. If you're really into filmmaking, that DVDs or Blu-rays are really
hmm
good on how they did it. There's a lot of interesting. They didn't have CGI back then,
mm-mm,
so you all of it was on the screen. So it was
yep,
a lot of film trickery and a lot of cool things that they did to get those scenes. I think they said not eight different gags for the head, 8 different
Okay.
ways they could film it. And they used all of them. It depended on the scene. And yeah, and Brian used before they started, he told Stuart Gordon, I need a breakdown of how you're going to actually do these scenes before we do them, because there's a lot, and we need
Had
to
they had
know. And so
planning and
Gordon had a
thinking. Yeah.
storyboard the whole thing, and yeah, it's I think there's like 3 different special effects teams that worked on it. But yeah, all bare bones. One of the special effects guys actually taught special effects, and
Huh.
his students worked on the film, so they had some unpaid students working on it, which yeah, this is sort of a movie that a student would love to work on, so I'm sure they enjoyed that. But yeah, and also there's one of the writers, Dennis Paolo, I think his name. Uh, he actually, when he was writing about the headless doctor, which is part of the H.P. Lovecraft story, there is a headless person in that reanimated. Check it out. But yeah, there's a point where the evil doctor is terrorizing the lady he loves, the dean's daughter. In the classic scene, everybody talks
Oh, I know
about.
where you're going. Yep.
He calls
Dr.
up
Hill. Yep.
Gordon,
Dr. Hill
laughing,
scene.
laughing hysterically. I said, I think I did the first physical pun, which is a head giving head, and I'll leave it at that. It's a play friendly show.
Well, so
But
speaking of that, yeah, well, that's a classic scene. That is one that really, the people, it is what it is. But I was gonna say too, the practical effects. I read that they did the intestine scene. Those were actual sheep intestines that they had to go get from a local butcher, and they had to clean them. But they still smell terrible, I believe. Is what the worst sausage links ever from, and,
hmm
and of course like you were mentioning, from that scene that is very iconic, uh, become a meme. The They did the choices that Gordon did for how he wanted to show the corpses and how they're reanimated, didn't fall into that zombie trap that I mentioned earlier. Like,
yeah,
it did its own thing. And you didn't even like think about zombies, to be honest with you. Like, I didn't think about it until
hmm
after the fact, until well, of course
yeah,
we're a little bit different than the normal viewer, because we're writing notes down and taking, and we're discussing it. But I just
yeah,
thought that was
yeah.
cool. I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting how Stuart Gordon approached it, because he actually went to a morgue and talked to the doctors, and yeah, he originally was like, he was trying to get in touch, and was like, would the pathologists, the morgue technicians, would they be interested in talking to me? And they said, oh, they would love to talk to you. No one wants to talk to them, so so they're dying to talk to people, pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he actually went and
That's funny.
was really kind of surprised that I guess when you die, depending on how you died and everything, the lividity of the skin,
Hmm.
they're different colors and stuff. And so and also Gordon said that he
He
was
nailed that.
asking morgue technicians, how he was going to have all these different corpses, and the technician was like, oh well, tell me the state of each of the corpses. He goes, well, I'm going to have one that gets a shotgun blast to the face, and this one dies,
Right.
to this way, gets burned and whatnot. And you told the 6 different corpses. And he showed up the next day, and the morgue technician goes, I got you a slideshow. And he had a slideshow, a shot, a screenshot, a picture of each of those real corpses that had
Oh,
the same
wow.
effects of what he was going for. And so he had those to give to the special effects guys as references. So I think, and also before they filmed, he brought a lot of the actors to a morgue and also a sane asylum to give them that feeling, since they're going to be spending time in a morgue. On the set, pretend one, he wanted to give them the feel of a real one, and you don't normally do that in a B movie. That it's just takes it to another level, and I think that's what helps this movie become more than what it is, because of those attention to details, those little things that just are there that add to the movie, that you don't notice, but really actually add to the whole thing. And I think that gives the zombies in this movie a little bit more of a realness to them,
Hmm.
that you wouldn't normally have, and it's just something that uh, that doesn't really register, but it does register in the back of your brain.
No, I agree. I also wanted to kind of bring in and mention another. Again, this goes back to the kind of the theme that we've been kind of talking about. These people are professional. They're professionals amongst professionals, right? So they know who to talk to, and not only was that true, but I think I don't know if you mentioned it or not. I feel like you did. The sound, the composing that happened, it was very reminiscent of Hitchcock and Psycho, just in a different
Yeah, I mentioned,
key or
yeah,
different tone
Bernard
or
Herman.
yeah, different
Yeah.
key, I think. Anyway, but
Hmm.
I just wanted to kind of pull that out while we're talking because all these kind of things are intricate, and Tom just laid out. He just made the case of like these actors that showed up to those meetings asked the right questions. They got the material that they needed to do their part, and they showed up and they did it. That's why I'm very impressed with this. The more the like this movie has no right to be as popular as it does today. If you were to go on just if you were just reading this on a paper on a sheet of paper and just judging by box office, right? It would be a win, but it would be like a minor splash that nobody would mention again. But that's not the case because everybody showed up to work. I just wanted to
Hmm.
call that out because the like a soap opera, but not in a way that is like soap opera like, right? So like it's all kind of it's made to be talked about and done. They do their work every single day live or whatever or however they do it, and to have a composer that understands that and to done it pulls you in
Yeah.
just like it kind of
Hmm.
keeps you at a perpetual state of something's gonna happen. You're just not quite sure. And then
Hmm.
you have the mad scientist. So all these kind of tropes, they do a head fake all the time throughout this whole thing, which is why I love this movie. Anyway, it's one of the things I picked up on that I just wanted to kind of mention.
Yeah, and it did break up a marriage.
Oh,
David
did it
Gale,
really?
who yeah, yep, David Gale, who plays the Dr. Hill, the other mad scientist. There's a scene, which we mentioned before, where he kidnaps the dean's daughter, Megan, and finally tries to have his way with her. And during that scene,
Right.
when they premiered it, and for the cast and crew, David Gale had his wife with him, and during that scene where his, his severed head is kissing and licking on the dean's daughter, his wife got up and said, "Dare you?" and left the theater. And I think they got divorced soon after. So,
That's crazy. That's crazy. Well,
which
that's
I
very
yeah, and
interesting.
I think David Gale, I don't know if that embittered him to the movie, but at the end of the movie of the actual filming, he did tell Gordon that it kind of reanimated his love for acting again. That he really, and the interesting thing is they had David Gale actually shave his head and wear a wig during this movie,
Hmm.
because they bought two wigs, one for the prop head, and it was cheaper for them to just buy wigs as opposed to try to get a wig that would look like his real hair. So he actually, unfortunately, had to wear that cheap wig
That's
as well,
funny.
so that they matched, which is actually kind of a, yeah, a cool way of fixing that problem. That's thinking with your head, so to speak. There's a lot of head gags in this movie. For the
Oh God.
eagle-eyed person out there, during one of the earlier scenes, you might see a poster for the band Talking Heads, which kind of foreshadows what happens later.
Right,
And
right,
also, I wanted to bring up the love triangle, or at least a triangle.
right.
There's sort of a love triangle between Herbert West, Kane, and Megan. You know, both Megan and Herbert West are applying for Kane's affection. Whether it's purely platonic with West, you don't really know, but he really feels compelled to pull Kane into his kind of warped experiments. And that's another element to the movie that just feels right and plays really well, is
Right.
that sort of antagonism between Megan and Herbert West, and it's there from the beginning. Megan knows something's off with the guy from the start. She's like, don't get this, let this guy live
Well,
with you.
she has the ick
And
factor turned
Megan's,
on.
yeah,
She's got the radar
yeah,
turned on. And that's palpable
hmm,
through the screen for sure.
yeah, and Gordon had a friend kind of point this out to him about the sure the Frankenstein story is the friend says sort of like a masturbatory kind of story, because it's basically taking the woman out of the equation. It's the man creating life, you know.
Mm.
So it makes sense that the female character of this movie would be the one that points out that this makes no sense, that, you know, this is crazy, you know,
Well, it's
that
against
she's the
nature.
voice
Right.
voice of reason. Yeah, exactly,
Right.
against nature. And also, it's the story is actually the movie, even though it's so over the top, you don't kind of associate that with H.P. Lovecraft. It's pretty close. You know, obviously they had to add things. And
Right.
one of the things they added was the character Megan, because one thing that H.P. Lovecraft was very much terrified of was women. He barely, very rarely had women in his stories. So she was an addition, and I think they did a quite a good job. And
Well,
the banter and the relationship between her and Kane is just wonderful. It just feels real, you know.
well, it would not be the story it was if they just did a carbon copy. This is kind of like why
Mhm.
you need directors and people around them that can help kind of craft that vision and bring it to life in a way that works for films or film and storyboarding and telling and all that.
Mhm.
Uh, I was gonna say, did you have any favorite quotes or scenes?
Mm.
Since we're
Yeah,
talking
there's
about the interior of the
a lot.
film here.
Yeah, a lot of wonderful lines. I like one that stood out to me was when Herbert West was having a talk with Kane about the dead cat. You know, what would you want me to leave a note? Yeah. Dead cat. Details later.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say. I was gonna say. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, it's just so casually sociopathic.
Mhm.
like like it's just every Tuesday or something. Like like I
Mhm.
liked I liked the one that kind of kept it light a little bit, or humor anyway. Or these
Mhm.
people are human beings and they kind of look about. They again, this kind of goes back to their being able to do their craft very well for you to dig in here. But I believe it was he said, who's going to believe a talking head get a job in a sideshow?
Yeah, yeah, and
Like just the
Herbert,
delivery was good.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Jeffrey Combs really loved that those lines, but uh, he said in the theater, everyone would die laughing at the first part of that about the talking head, and they would laugh so loud that would drown out the second line, which he
Oh,
liked
that's right.
better, and you know, get a job in a sideshow, which yeah, but yeah, it's also. I like the line where yeah, yeah, he just reanimated Hill's head, and he's taking notes at what what the head's saying to him. He goes, yes, yes, and he goes, "You." It's just funny that that's the notes that you had to write down. But one of Gordon's friends, that was his favorite scene, and Gordon said that, you know, that friend would call him up at night and just say, "You bastard." As I guess prank calling him. Also, a little fun thing. The the very beginning, that sort of a tag scene that kind of introduces the movie before the credits. They actually shot that in February after the original shooting. They weren't going to do that scene, but
Hmm.
Brian Usna felt like it was needed, so they actually went back and shot it. And the doctor's name, did that stand out to you? Hans Gruber.
It did.
He's the
Yeah, it did.
Yep, he's the name of the bad guy in Die Hard, Hans
But
Gruber.
yeah,
So eagle-eyed person might see that. One other thing I found funny is that security guard. Was he the worst security guard ever?
terrible.
He kept
Absolutely
going on
terrible.
his
Laughable.
his coffee breaks,
Right, right. Well,
which
oh, go ahead.
Brian Usna said that he said that the real reason why the security guard was going off was to go back masturbate, was the the joke on the set.
That's funny.
In fact,
That
one of the scenes he's kind of looking through a girly magazine.
Oh,
So
right. Yeah,
yeah.
I kind of remember that a little bit. Yeah, that I was gonna say.
Mhm.
Like we kind of mentioned. Well, I mentioned movies that it reminded me of loosely. But I think the twin to this movie would be Bride of Frankenstein, and what I mean by that is Bride of Frankenstein. The comedy was first. The horror was
Mhm.
kind of like a, a, a nice kind of part of it. Whereas this one is the comedy is secondary and the horror is primary. I noticed that, and not just in that, not just in my interpretation of that, but also kind of like as you, excuse me, you roll up to the climax, it has echoes of that. Again, they know where to borrow, and but when they borrow, they don't outright steal. They do it in a way that
Yeah.
makes sense for the thing. Anyway, I
Mhm.
kind of I just want to mention that I had that as a note I wanted to call out.
Yeah. Yeah. And um there's a documentary I mentioned on the Blu-ray. It's very good. I think it was filmed when the Anchor Bay DVD came out in the early 2000s, and it interviewed a lot of the people. And one of the people they interviewed was the cinematographer Mac Alberg, and he actually educated Gordon on how to do films, because Gordon
Huh.
obviously came from the theater. This is his first movie. He really didn't know what he was doing as far as framing up shots and whatnot. And um,
Right.
I guess Alberg is German, and everybody, all the actors, kind of did their take on his accent, and one of them, evidently he's quite a character. One of them, he was they did him, and he's like, he would always go, Stuart, I know the scene looks great from where you're standing, but if you come over here and look at the camera's view, you can see it looks like shit. And
That's awesome.
they all had their favorite moment of Mac, and during the end scene, they have all these corpses come back to life.
Yep. Like I mentioned. Yeah.
They're not wearing anything, so
Right.
they had to creatively film it. There's certain parts of Mel's anatomy that you can't really get away with filming too much of, and the cinematographer Mac had a bit of a challenge, and he said that he was kind of like, at one point during filming, he was kind of head down, kind of shaking his head, and he was saying, "Weenies, weenies, too many wiggling weenies."
uh yeah, yeah, you catch a little bit of a angle of the dangle once in a while too. In all fairness,
Right.
this movie is a very much an equal opportunity offender. And also it goes in that goes in its favor, I would say. For
Yes,
sure.
and to capitalize on that, and also Brian used he did not want any restrictions on this movie. He wanted to make
Hmm.
it the way he wanted. They had the MPAA look at it, but in their suggestions would have cut the movie down to about a 40-minute movie
Mm.
if they wanted an R rating. So um, this is one of the very few movies that was released unrated. So they didn't submit it to the MPAA and did not get a rating, and they released it, and it did well for not because you can't
It
really
made money.
advertise it too much. Yeah,
Right.
it did make money, and it it kind of lived on, um, and also they premiered it at Cannes Film Festival, and it actually won the audience over, and it won a special award, which
Huh.
Gordon thought that they handed out for most movies, but no, that's a kind of a special thing for the can. So he was kind of surprised by that, and also he was very much surprised because he felt this movie would not get good good reviews, that it wouldn't do well. Surprise, surprise, a lot of critics really loved this movie.
Mm.
Um, and this is sort of our reoccurring segment on here where I read Roger Ebert's review. He loved the movie. He gave it 3.5 stars out of 4. Let me
That's high
find
praise.
his quote on this. Let's see. Reception. Yeah, he gave it 3 out of 4 stars, and he wrote, I walked out somewhat surprised and reinvigorated, if not reanimated, by a movie that had the audience emitting taxi whistles and wild goat cries.
That's funny.
and Pauline Kael, which is another big reviewer at the time, gave it a real good review and put it in her top 10 movies of the year, and described Barbara Crampton as a Botticelli esque nude. So she was very much impressed. But yeah, it's one of the movies that both the audience and the critics love, and I think it's just so smartly written, and
Yep.
it
Smartly
really
done too.
knows
Yeah.
what it's doing. Yeah, and um, the original cut of the movie was that the Gordon did. The rough cut was like 2.5 hours long, which he did not do the editing. He went back to Chicago and went back to the theater, and the editor and Brian Usna actually edited it down. And it's a slim hour and 26 minutes. The uncut version is an hour and 26 minutes, and like I said, it's everything's there. Everything that you need for the movie, it all makes sense. But there's no filler. There's
No.
no extra scenes in there. They did release later on VHS a R-rated version of it that cut out a lot of the gore and added in a lot of the exposition scenes that were cut out. And actually, that version is actually a few minutes longer than the uncut version, but the preferred by everybody is the uncut. Gordon, even though there's not technically a director's cut because he never did submit an official director's cut, he approved of the hour and 26 minute version, which is on
Okay.
the
Okay.
Blu-ray that I watched. So
Awesome.
yeah, I think the one on YouTube is the 126 minute version. So
Yeah, I think I
um,
saw the regular
but,
version, the one that I got. I watched, but
yep.
and we'll have that YouTube one in the show notes too. I thought I had roped it in
Mhm.
there, but I will say this: we are getting up to that time where we got to pay the bills. And I
Mhm.
was going to say we're going to do one more spot here. We're very grateful to this company that decided to sponsor us, the First Last Nerdom. Are you a mad scientist on a budget?
Do funded cuts have your unholy experiments on hold?
Well, introducing Science Direct, the online marketplace for gently used laboratory equipment.
Why pay full price for a Tesla coil when you can get one that's only been struck by lightning twice?
We've got centrifuges, spectrometers, slightly stained gurneys, and mysterious machines that go ping.
All at a prices that won't require selling body parts, yours or anyone else's.
Thanks to Science Direct, I completed my basement laboratory for half the cost. The government agents haven't found me yet. Anonymous location undisclosed.
Science Direct for the mad scientist who's crazy about savings.
No questions asked about bloodstains or ectoplasm residue. We don't judge. Thanks to Science Direct for that that spot. We'll cash that check.
Mhm.
Hopefully it'll cash.
Sure.
Excuse me. Get back to the movie. I was gonna say, this is a. I ask myself this question when I see a substantial horror film. Is this film a good film to introduce? Now, if you have not seen this film and you are a horror fan, you're missing out. This is a
Yeah, what are
absolute
you
go
doing
to.
with your life? Yeah.
Yeah. But I wonder, and I have to ask you this, do you think this movie is a good one to introduce somebody into horror? What do you think? Well, I'm very curious on your thoughts on that.
This is sort of like it's more of a intermediate or
Okay.
high level horror. Maybe not want to jump straight in,
First
especially
blast.
seeing, yeah, yeah. Although, although kids, they did stories back in the day, during the '80s, about little kids, watching Evil Dead 2. I guess it's depends on your tolerance level, but you know, during the commentary, the I think one of the actors was asking Bruce Abbott, who had kids, young kids, ask him if they had seen the movie yet. He said, "No, no, I might wait until they're 8." I
Yeah,
guess they were a
I'd
little,
say so.
little bit too young to appreciate. One other thing, Robert Sampson, who plays the uptight dean, he really loved this movie because he's sort of I guess they said he had a kind of a wild sense of humor, and all he was
Awesome.
ever really cast in were those kind of stuffy conservative types, like a
Right.
lawyer or a
Authoritarian.
dean or a
Or the authority
doctor,
of the man. Yeah.
yeah. So in this movie, he gets zombified and gets to act, like a real crazy. So he really enjoyed that, and in fact, a lot of times he would wear the makeup home, where he looked like the crazy. And one time he stopped for gas, and the gas attendant all he did was he looked at him and he said, "Man, do you need help?" And Robert said, "Nah, nah, I'm good." Drove off. But
Yeah, that's well. I would
it's
say I would say that would be like what Herbert West would say. Death is not the end. It's just really bad for your complexion. That's funny.
Yep, 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 yep.
Yeah.
The only thing I had was they were really creative, and like you said, they only had $1 million to
Hmm.
spend on the budget, and they found creative ways to do what they needed. There's a scene where the dean crushes Hill's head and throws it to the wall, and the way that they got that was they had a bunch of ground beef covered in cornstarch blood with a wig on it, and but somehow they got it to hold together and threw that on the wall, and it left that nice little splat, and
That's
that
awesome.
fell down.
That's
So yeah,
awesome.
and the other thing, they did approach Christopher Lee to play Hill. He turned it down, and David Gale was the one that accepted the
Picked it up.
role, which I think if Christopher Lee is Christopher Lee. I mean, he would have done an amazing role, but David Gale actually kind of looks a little bit like Christopher Lee and kind of gives that kind of hammer. He had that kind of stately kind of horror manner about him. That really works. It's unfortunate, they passed away so soon after this movie. I'd love to have seen him in more stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say this one. I was gonna kind of revisit how I don't personally think this was over the top or too gory. I think it matched its pace and its setting and its world building just fine. I don't think that, but I know that they had to defend it back in the day
Hmm.
because, of course, in the '80s that was that was where the moral guardian, the moral police, that would have absolutely, and in other places in the world too. I believe this was banned in Germany until 1999. And in the UK, I think they took their whack at it. Of course, Europeans aren't as uptight with the nudity. It's more the violence, I think, that
Hmm.
that they get. they get they don't like that as much. But I noted that
Yeah.
one in my research.
Yeah. The UK didn't like the the scene where the head gave head, so
Right.
they had that cut from it. But yeah, this movie yeah, when I first started getting into horror at a in my teenage years, yeah, I kind of looked down, you know, everybody kind of looked down on slasher movies, and I thought, well, you know, movies with gore in it, you know, I like the more highbrow horror, you know, and this movie. Seeing this movie, it changed my opinion. It's like, okay, well, you could have gore and still have a a fascinating, interesting story. Because you know, absolutely, I remember absolutely falling in love with this movie. It was love at first sight seeing
Hmm.
this movie. So that and the Evil Dead movies just kind of turned me
Yep.
around as far as what an extreme movie could do that was smartly written and smartly carried out by smart people.
Yeah, I agree. And this movie, had I seen this a year ago, I probably would have had good appreciation for it. But because we have we pivoted the show or the channel to include horror and introduce me to it as well, I it works out very well. For at my stage, I'm a little bit more. This is my first rodeo, and you're definitely stay tuned for later in the year because Thomas has a challenge for me, which we'll get into in the upcoming weeks, and we'll reveal that at the end of March as to what that challenge will be. So stay tuned for that if you have made it this far. I would say I think we're close to wrapping up. You know, this movie I appreciate it for what it is. And it is definitely a fun gem to get to. But it takes itself. It's hard to describe. You kind of have to go. You have to go watch it if you are even you know, a foot deep horror fan. Anything beyond that, you're going to get something out of it, or you'll be revolted by it, maybe. But it'll be entertainment for sure, but not in a way that is like you know, Saw 7 or something. You know, like that's just, you know, ridiculous, over the top. Just, you know, you've kind of seen the same
Yeah.
formula over and over and over again. This is not that.
Mhm.
I would
Yeah,
say. I would probably say recommend to stay away from the the derivatives from it in the future. Just me personally, I'm just saying because I won't be partake. I kind of want to just capture this one, and I just want to keep this one around, and I don't want to dilute it or do anything with it because it is good as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then for those people that say, you know, complain about, you know, slow paced movies. Oh, this movie's so slow. This oh man, that's slow. Watch this movie. There's nothing slow about this movie.
Mm-mm.
It starts off, you know, fast paced, and it stays that way. It gives you enough information, like, you know, it gives you all the beats. You know, you start off with Dan Keene, him trying to save the woman, which another funny story. That lady that he's trying to revive at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, you know, later on she becomes a corpse. She was obsessed with dildos and would run around and place dildos next to the various corpses, which was kind of odd. That was mentioned in the commentary.
That's
It's kind of
funny.
weird,
Well, these people have a
but yeah,
sense of humor. I like that. I like that.
absolutely, absolutely. And he think he thought he might have broke a couple of her ribs because he was, you know, doing that so hard on her. But yeah, yeah, they give you the beats. You know, he's kind of obsessed with saving people, so he's sort of kind of you know, ripe for the picking when Herbert West gives comes up with this agent that brings people back to life. You know, that's what doctors want to do is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to save the patient at any cost. You know, damn the consequences. So yeah, and you know, it kind of has a bit of symmetry. You know, it starts off with him trying to save someone, and it ends in that same emergency room trying to save someone else. You know, someone a little bit more closer to him. And then that final shot where it fades to black and all you see is
Mm-hmm.
the reagent going in.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
just
Perfectly done.
brilliant. I mean, like I
Perfectly
said,
done.
there's not a thing in this movie that really kind of, you know, there's maybe a couple of effects. You know, there's the classic scene with the cat. You know, some of that is kind of kind of a little wonky, but I think that's kind of intentional to kind of ease you into
Right.
to things a little bit, but yeah. Also, the scene of the if the cat look that's in the refrigerator when they first see the cat,
Right.
if it looks a little too real to you, it actually is. It's actually a corpse of a cat in
Hmm.
there, so that's why it looks so real there.
That's funny. Yeah, I was very pleased with this film. It's one to put on the list, add on the list if you're any kind of a horror,
Hmm.
fan. Like you mentioned, probably a little bit, maybe a little bit more into it if after you have a little bit more horror
Yeah.
mileage, and you can appreciate and
Once you
kind of get a
yeah
feel
once you
for what you
realize you're
like
a
and what you don't
fan.
like. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's sort of a reason to my madness with this channel. Yeah, this was one of the movies I wanted to do a little bit more into the channel once we've got a few other horror movies under our belt, because yeah, this is we're doing a master class in horror. You can't just jump right into this one. You kind of have
No.
to work your way. But it is definitely in my I don't think I've ever come up with a top 10 list, but it would be a strong contender if not in my top 10, because when I think of horror movies that I love, this is obviously one of them that comes immediately to mind.
Yeah, when you come in this, you got to come in with an open mind and a strong stomach, and don't expect like a traditional zombie film or a Frankenstein film or something like that. It's going to be something weirder, wilder, and more intelligent than your average, schlock undead fare, that sort of thing. And I would say probably if you have the ability, watch the unrated version, because you might as well get the full experience with it. But however you can see it is however you can see it. So whatever that means to you and wherever you're at, see it. I
Yeah,
recommend it.
and one last note. We do have the sequels, which again weren't directed by Gordon. They were directed by Brian Usna, so they're not quite as good. So you can check those out if you just love Herbert West. But another movie that I'm going to recommend to our channel, which we may do later on, which I do have a 4K of, is From Beyond, which is the next H.P. Lovecraft movie that Stuart Gordon did. He did it with Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs. So it's a lesser known one, but From Beyond is definitely another crazy one that we, like I said, might check out. It's well worth seeing. And
Absolutely.
I do have
Look forward to it.
the 4K from Vinegar Syndrome, so yeah, it's really way out there. If you
Awesome.
think,
Awesome.
yeah, it's Reanimator, and this one goes up another level as far as
Awesome.
craziness.
Awesome. Well, I think we're coming up here to the caboose.
Yep.
I really like this one. Thank you so much for finding this guy and us
Hmm.
watching it. It really worked for me, and I think it's going to
Hmm.
work for you out there. And I think we'll forego the plugging of our normal thing, and we'll
Yeah.
do the fade, the outro screen, because we did some extra new things here. We kind of keep it a little bit tighter. But in any case,
Mhm.
I have been Mike.
And I'm Tom, and this is the our first salvo in the March Madness. So we're getting crazy up in here, and we'll get ready for the next crazy movie. It might just have crazy in the title.
Yeah, it's gonna be a different kind of reagent for sure. And with that being said, we'll see you later.
Bye.